Good morning, this is DealBook for Wednesday, July 29, 2026. I'm your host, and we've got a packed briefing today, from a seismic shift in big law that's drawing comparisons to Hollywood's most famous agency raid, to big tech earnings anxiety, a widening Middle East conflict moving oil markets, FIFA's controversial plan to sell a stake in the World Cup, and a startup raising millions to detect what its CEO calls AI slop. Let's dive in. We start with that big law shakeup. The newsletter opens with a historical parallel. Back in 1995, Ari Emanuel walked out of International Creative Management in the middle of the night with a stack of client files to build Endeavor, proving even Hollywood's top agencies weren't untouchable. Now, DealBook suggests big law may be having its Ari Emanuel moment. Yesterday, Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen & Katz's top litigation chief, Bill Savitt, led 5 partners to Gibson Dunn in what's being called a stunning raid. The defections have Wall Street debating whether the legal industry's historically staid, loyalty-driven partnership model is undergoing a permanent shift. Let's unpack this, because the details are remarkable. Bill Savitt isn't just any partner, he's a co-chair of Wachtell, and his track record reads like a greatest hits album of high-stakes corporate battles. He defended Twitter in the 2022 lawsuit that forced Elon Musk to close his $44 billion acquisition of the company. As lead counsel for OpenAI this spring, he helped the artificial intelligence company defend itself against Musk's breach of contract accusations. Hiring Savitt, Gibson Dunn's chair Barbara Becker told DealBook, was a dream hatched when she took the helm 5 years ago. Savitt was number 1 on her must-hire list. To understand why this is such a hydrogen bomb in the ecosystem, and that's the phrase used by Stephen Davidoff-Solomon, a professor at UC Berkeley School of Law, you have to understand Wachtell's model. It's a tight-knit, single-office boutique in New York with expertise in takeovers and a major corporate litigation presence in Delaware's Court of Chancery. It's known for setting record profits. Historically, departures of any kind from Wachtell, let alone by a firm co-chair, would have been unheard of. Wachtell's spokeswoman insisted the firm is performing at its highest level across every metric, calling it a record year with the firm at the top of all the league tables and as strong as it has ever been. They continue high-profile work, including representing Jefferies in litigation surrounding the bankruptcy of auto parts supplier First Brands. But the Savitt departure doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes amid big changes in big law. The shift away from the more gradual, lockstep salary approach has led to a fierce, expensive war for talent. Law firms are now paying $20 million as a baseline for top recruits. Gibson Dunn has been building what its trials practice co-chair Oren Snyder calls a dream team or a super team for the past 5 years, including groups led by Jeff Wall, a former acting U.S. Solicitor General, and Barry Burke, the prominent white-collar defense lawyer. The question now is whether Wachtell needs to rethink its model or whether this is an exception that proves the rule. While the legal world digests that, investors are being whipsawed by bold-faced headlines on multiple fronts. Renewed fighting between the US and Iran, a high-drama Fed interest rate vote, and a tech stock sell-off are all amping up market volatility ahead of earnings reports from AI bellwethers Microsoft and Meta later today, with Amazon tomorrow. Let's start with the Middle East. Brent crude, the international benchmark for oil, climbed more than 5%, trading around $88.50 a barrel after the US and Saudi Arabia said they had launched coordinated strikes on Iranian-backed militias in Iraq overnight, ending a 4-day lull in fighting. According to reporting by Laura Stevens, after tumbling last week, oil prices reversed direction on Wednesday, topping $90 a barrel as attacks resumed in the Middle East, jolting investors concerned about the flow of energy out of the region. The United States and Saudi Arabia struck Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, and Iran said it had fired missiles at U.S. military targets in the region. In addition, the Iranian-backed Houthi militia in Yemen said on Tuesday they had launched missiles at a Saudi oil tanker, the group's latest attack since, well, the situation remains fluid. That geopolitical tension is one headwind. Another is the tech sell-off. The sell-off on South Korea's Kospi index continues, with SK Hynix again taking a big hit. Investors are in a show-me-the-money mood. SK Hynix, whose memory chips are key to the build-out of AI infrastructure as well as cars, tech gadgets, and more, reported a record quarterly operating profit margin today. But it still fell short of calming demanding investors. Its shares have halved in the past month. Steve Lohr, reporting from Seoul, notes that for decades, making memory chips had been the digital equivalent of mining raw materials, enormous investments in expensive factories, prices swinging through boom or bust cycles. The glamour and lofty profits lay in data processing brains, not memory chips that stored and transported data. But artificial intelligence, with its nearly limitless appetite for training data, has transformed the stature and profitability of memory makers like SK Hynix. Yet even stratospheric sales and profits weren't enough to calm skittish investors. It's a tough crowd in the US, too. The Nasdaq 100 grouping of tech heavyweights is flirting with correction territory, a drop of 10% from its June high. Shares in Microsoft and Meta have fallen even further in the past year as investors grow anxious about when their huge AI capital expenditure commitments will pay off. The outlier, Apple, whose valuation briefly surpassed $5 trillion yesterday. Wall Street isn't just interested in return on investment. Silicon Valley is divided over the open versus closed AI model debate. Investors will want to know whether this could shake up the economics of AI, too, and even determine which frontier labs win out. Mark Zuckerberg has made clear where he stands. The Meta CEO is firmly in the open camp, and is growing increasingly suspicious of labs like Anthropic and OpenAI that have argued that as the technology grows more powerful it would be safer to keep AI models limited to controlled environments like theirs. He told The Times yesterday that such an approach would be bad for innovation and even dangerous. So much of the discourse from a lot of the other labs that are developing this is overwhelmingly filled with doom, Zuckerberg said. There needs to be a voice or several voices that are bringing realism to this debate. Zuckerberg also told the Financial Times that the US should not seek to block Chinese AI models. The Chinese competitive threat is also likely to be a hot topic on big tech earnings calls. Mike Isaac and Eli Tan, reporting from San Francisco, add that in an interview on Tuesday, the 42-year-old chief executive of Meta did not call out Anthropic and OpenAI by name, but said that if leading research labs wanted to develop AI technology in a tightly controlled manner, it could lead to a centralization of power that would narrow people's access to the transformational technology. He supported more openness. This debate, open versus closed, is driving a wedge through big tech, and as Andrew Ross Sorkin and colleagues note in their analysis, investors and policymakers must contend with competing camps that view open and closed artificial intelligence models as key to the sector's future. There's even a phrase being used to describe NVIDIA, the central bank of the AI economy, with a new report saying the chipmaker is brokering a $250 billion guarantee for OpenAI's immense Ohio campus. Now, a few quick hits from the Here's What's Happening section. The Federal Communications Commission released rules that bar the import from China of new humanoid and quadruped robots, along with power inverters, which connect renewable energy sources and batteries to grids and data centers. The administration is worried that such technology could be used to disrupt or steal data from U.S. supply chains. Shine, the Chinese online fast fashion company, says it's being investigated by the Federal Trade Commission. The admission came in a new filing ahead of its planned IPO in Hong Kong. Shine did not specify the reason for the scrutiny, but it adds to questions about its high-profile trading debut. The Senate confirmed Jay Clayton as Director of National Intelligence, voting 51-47 along party lines to oversee U.S. intelligence agencies. Lawmakers had been eager to see Clayton, who served as chairman of the SEC in President Trump's first term, take over from Bill Pulte, a housing official with no national security experience. Dustin Bowles reports that Clayton, the U.S. attorney in Manhattan, shed Democratic support after he refused to clearly say Joseph R. Biden Jr. won the 2020 election. His nomination was initially met with some goodwill from Democrats, but he shed that bipartisan support during his confirmation hearing this month after he refused to clearly state that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Let's turn now to FIFA. The World Cup was a bonanza for broadcasters, corporate sponsors, and FIFA itself. But a rift between Gianni Infantino, the president of the international soccer governing body, and Europe's soccer powerhouses continues to grow ahead of a big leadership vote next year. Now two giants of the investment world, JP Morgan Chase and Thrive Capital, are being pulled into the fray as FIFA aims for its first private investment. FIFA yesterday announced a plan to sell a minority stake in a new subsidiary called FIFA Forward Enterprise, FFE, that would manage the commercial side of its main events, such as the World Cup. The aim is to increase the revenue FIFA brings in, capitalizing on the popularity of this year's supersized World Cup. But members still need to approve the plan. Here's how it would work. Investors would put up to $4.2 billion into the new subsidiary, at a valuation of $20 billion, for about a 20% stake. JP Morgan is working with FIFA to drum up interest. Thrive Capital, the investment fund led by Joshua Kushner, is in advanced talks to lead the deal through its Thrive Eternal Fund. FIFA's 211 national soccer associations would each immediately receive $20 million, plus a big bump in future years. Not everyone is a supporter. Fan groups and politicians have slammed FIFA for selling out a sport that had been run by non-profits. Europe's soccer authority, UEFA, reacted with special fury. It said the deal crosses a line and offers zero transparency as to who gains financially. And it was reportedly considering a boycott of FIFA events. The payouts are causing tension. A drop in the bucket for richer countries, the funds represent a windfall for smaller nations. Critics fear the payments could enable Infantino, a close ally of President Trump, to curry favor with this bloc, giving him an overwhelming edge ahead of FIFA presidential elections in March. The Athletic reports that FIFA was forced to rush out details of the plan after elements started being reported by several media outlets earlier on Tuesday. Next, a scoop from our own Nico Gallegly, a startup fighting what its CEO calls AI slop just raised $9 million. Pangram, a New York-based AI detection company, is announcing the funding round along with the launch of 2 new detection models, including one that analyzes images. Menlo Ventures is leading the round, with participation from Scop Venture Capital, Haystack Ventures and others. AI detection tools have been dismissed as unreliable in some tech circles. But Pangram has helped reshape that narrative. A 2025 study from the University of Chicago found that Pangram maintained near-perfect accuracy in assessing texts that were roughly 500 words or more, outcompeting its rivals Originality.ai and GPT-0. It's attracted big customers. More than 50 universities are now paying for the startup's services. Last week, Substack unveiled a partnership with Pangram to allow readers to opt out of seeing AI-generated content. Pangram's annual revenue rate has soared in the past year. Monthly users grew to 120,000 in June, up from 2,700 a year before. A majority of Pangram's revenue comes from individual subscriptions, which cost $20 per month. Max Spiro, Pangram's co-founder and CEO, calls himself the internet's slop janitor. He told DealBook the new AI image detection model will help bolster Pangram's goal of providing users with cognitive security. But there are caveats. It's not always right. That creates the potential for accusations about AI-generated writing that might be wrong. Another question: what is the right way to treat text that Pangram labels as partly written with AI? Spiro said he thought it was completely okay for people to use AI as an assistant, but noted that he personally chose not to. How everyone else chooses to treat that messy middle ground remains to be seen. Finally, the speed read. Blackstone put Jersey Mike's on a fast track to this week's IPO, according to the Wall Street Journal. Meta and BlackRock are planning a giant Texas data center that could cost $14 billion to build. Koch Incorporated, the major conglomerate, is said to be weighing the sale of a data center developer that could value it at around $15 billion, per Bloomberg. PwC published Thought Leadership reports marred by AI hallucinations, the Financial Times reports. More than 1,100 workers at leading AI companies have signed a petition calling on Washington to weigh the throttling of AI development as a safety precaution, according to Bloomberg. Ross Douthat, an opinion columnist at The New York Times, is leaving to join the CBS News program 60 Minutes as a correspondent for its 59th season premiering September 13, joining a group that includes Sebastian Junger, Gianna Taboni, Trevor Phillips, and Nora O'Donnell. And would you take a flight lasting 24 hours? Qantas is betting you would, and just set what's believed to be a long-distance commercial flight record, per The Guardian. That's your DealBook briefing for Wednesday, July 29, 2026. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Have a good day.